It's time for Wise Money with Korhorn Financial Group with certified financial planners Kevin Korhorn, Mike Bernard, and Josh Gregory.
Welcome to another episode of the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group, where every week we're helping you take your next wise step in your financial life. Thanks for being here, friends. My name is Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn. Between us, CFP Amy Masters.
Yeah, over the next 2 decades, it's predicted that we're going to see a massive transfer of wealth from one generation to another. So the question is, are you prepared either to pass along a financial blessing to your heirs or to receive one responsibly? And how should each of these scenarios impact your financial planning and decision-making today? We're going to hit that and much more on this hour of the Wise Money Show.
That's right, and hit listener questions as well. We love to hear from you. If you have a question for the show or have a question, need some help, we're here for you. Call us, text us, 574-222-2000. That's 574-222-2000. Online, wisemoneyshow.com is where you can find us. Reach out to us there as well. And also all over social media, wherever you're at, we are there as well. And find us, wisemoneyshow.com. Amy, welcome back. I'm just going to tell you right now, I've got this really strange condition between my brain and my mouth. Things are not coming out right already this morning. So can you save us?
Oh, I'll try. It's been a couple years since I've been on the show. I've been trying to hide out in my office, and you guys called me back to join in today. So we'll see what I can do.
Doing amazing work serving folks. And all right, so a few weeks ago, we were talking about, we were answering a question from a fan of the show about, hey, I've got sort of 3 scenarios cooking here, and they all deal with inheritances. How do I plan, essentially? And, oh, my goodness, it's so good, so good. And so we're following back up on that because there's this phenomenon or economic event or whatever, buzz phrase going on right now called the Great Wealth Transfer. Great Wealth Transfer. And it essentially speaks to what's going to be taking place over the next couple of decades, where tens of trillions of dollars will be transferring from one generation to the next. So we're going to be picking up more of kind of best practices and how either expecting to receive an inheritance or to give one, how that can influence your financial life. Guys, overall thoughts on this concept, great wealth transfer?
Well, there's a number of angles in which to approach this, because if you are the transferor, what do you want to be thinking about? And this is where we love financial planning. And did we say that Amy's been working here at KFG for the last, is it 10 years? So 10 years, she's a CFP, and she's a great leader, especially leading clients and younger advisors even deeper into financial planning. She's a great financial planning mind, which is why I'm glad she's here. And she's seen a lot of this in her career. So really, when you have the person that has the wealth and no one takes whatever you have, you're not taking it with you. So when you leave this earth, that money is going to be left behind. And you've got 3 options for where it goes. It can go to the government in the form of taxes. It can go to a charity, and it can go to people. And so you have to figure out, of the 3, which one do I love the most? and then how do you do it? And if you say, I've got wealth that I likely won't get to in my lifetime, do I start the transfer now, or do I wait until the very end? And once I'm gone, there will be checks that will be dispersed to my heirs. And this is why we love financial planning, and we refer to financial planning as the beautiful game. It's not soccer. It's financial planning. But it is the beautiful game, because if you're working with an advisor, you can look and say, well, what's the probability that I'll have assets left over when I'm done? And with those assets, the people that are likely going to get them, how prepared are they to receive those assets? And I'm not trying to steal any thunder here, but I mean, that's the big question.
Yeah.
Because if I know in the back of my mind, hey, at some point in time, my kids are likely to get some sort of a windfall. If we're not doing like windfall wind sprints to get some sort of practice and run some laps around the track, when they get it, they're likely not going to be prepared. And unearned money is by far and away the most difficult money to handle.
All right. So here's the thing. So Amy, you weren't on the last show, but we just organically found ourselves in these this realization of, well, when there's a potential inheritance, you can either be preparing, you can be planning, or you can be expecting. And I know kind of you listened to that episode. So how would you kind of explain the difference between a couple of those or define those?
It's interesting that you guys have brought that up. I've had a lot of conversations with clients lately on this where they're the about to retire or in retirement and wanting to know, how do I set my kids up for success? I feel like that's been a topic that we've hit a lot, and that preparing especially is what I think about. How do we get the right habits in place now while they're young and in that accumulation phase? And that's something that we spend a lot of time talking about. Maybe that is giving them resources to do some self-studying, like getting the right habits. We have a foundation group of videos that we did years ago that sometimes I'll send that to the kids of my clients, kind of start those connections, because it's never too early to get some of those right habits in place to just be better, I guess, have that better foundation for when something happens, whether it's an inheritance or just a big life event. You already have that structure in place to be able to make some good decisions.
So preparing is all about, it's the deep work. It's the character, it's the skill, it's the maturity to be able to handle money. And yeah, so much of it, I'm glad you touched on habits, because that's where my mind goes as well. Do you have the right habits? Now, that's preparing. Expecting an inheritance often is where you weaken your financial habits. I'm not, trying to poke anyone in the eye, but if your financial plan is, I don't need to do some of these kind of foundational financial things because I'm just going to receive some money at some point and I'll be fine. That might be your reality, but if you're not, if that weakens your habits, you're going to have a harder time stewarding, sorry to use that word, but stewarding those resources when you do receive them. Actually, even could jeopardize it. Planning then, I'll just throw that out there before, Kevin, you chime in, but planning then is the financial strategy. Okay, there's an inheritance on the table. Looks like I could potentially receive $1 million. It's all pre-tax money. Therefore, I should be funding Roth or doing Roth conversions or whatever. It's looking at how the different areas, the 6 areas of your financial life could be impacted by receiving an inheritance or even giving one. And what are the strategies that you should consider? We're actually going to spend the rest of the show talking about those potential strategies. So that coming up. But Kevin, what would you add to that trio?
Yeah, well, I think if you're thinking about this, because the expecting, that's the person that's just kind of sitting there with the catcher's mitt saying, hey, throw me the ball. And when I get it, then I'm going to figure out what to do with it. And I would say if you're the receiver, if you're going to be receiving, you would want to look at the skills that the passer possesses and say, do I possess those same skills? Now, it might be if it's, if it's your folks or if it's a certain relative, you might have some relational junk in between that makes you say, well, I'm not going to be anything like that. Well, there are some things if the passer has accumulated some meaningful wealth that's going to be transferred down, the receiver better be figuring it out, because Mike, you just gave the example of, hey, I inherit $1 million IRA. Well, if I inherit $1 million IRA, it used to be I could take that out over my lifetime.
Yeah, just a little bit every year. If I need more, I can take more, but I got to take just a little bit every year.
And if I did it right, that money's growing for the rest of my lifetime. But that's not the case anymore. I've got 10 years. Well, how prepared am I strategically to pull out an extra $100,000 and put it on top of my existing income?
Yeah.
I think an interesting or risky aspect of expecting too is it's hard to have those conversations with people. And, from the conversations I have with my clients, not always open lines of communication between generations. And so sometimes you'll hear that I'm expecting this could happen, but then I might be having similar conversations with the parents, and that's not what the parents are necessarily expecting. I think especially these last maybe 5-6 years, I've seen a big transition into, hey, if there's money left over, great. I would love to leave it to my kids, but I'm not going to change my lifestyle or goals to make that happen.
Yeah, yeah. Which is, how often should you plan for an inheritance? No, build your own financial plan, and most of the time, and by most, like 99% of the time, treat an inheritance like, oh, that's just cream on the crop. I've got my own plan in place. So, what are some of those strategies planning for receiving or leaving an inheritance? That and more coming up on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for being here. This is the Wise Money Show. What you're watching right now is our weekly 1-hour talk show that airs right here on this channel, 10 a.m. Eastern Time every Saturday morning, also on podcast at the same time, but also on a couple local radio stations as well, which is why it's a talk show. That's why it's broken up the way that it is with segments and breaks and all that sort of gunk. But we've got content made just for you, just for YouTube. Every day of the work week, we've got a Next Wise Step video that airs taking one financial concept, applying it directly to your financial life. And so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications so you're made aware every time we drop new content. If you like the content, leave questions and comments below as well. We appreciate it. Okay. I actually noticed on one of the recent videos, the commercial break icon that normally would be like right.
I took them away.
You took them away? Why?
You like them?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it's fantastic. It's one of my favorite parts of the show.
It is my favorite part of the show.
Yeah.
Put it right here. Just kidding.
My second favorite part of the show is when Mike says stuff like cream on the crop.
I know. And you saw, like, I looked at you and I'm like, do I have time to fix that? No, I don't. I just need to keep going. Hopefully you don't hurt it.
I saw Kevin's face.
I know. Yep.
Oh, my grip.
I would have fixed it, but listen, I was already over.
That's okay. That's okay. Those are kind of my favorite things to do a little. You sound very. I won't say it.
I know what you're going to say, actually. All right, here we go. So let's get into it then.
Which one?
Enough banter. So
which one do you want to get
You
into?
think you're going to be potentially receiving an inheritance? Mm-hmm. Go through the 6 areas, and we don't need to go in the exact order, but we can.
So who are we talking to? The passer or the receiver?
Nope, we're talking to the receiver.
This is all receiver.
This question is all receiver.
All receiver all the time.
And then we'll get to passer.
Okay.
So we're going to hit receiver first and go through the 6 areas.
You make me feel like I'm a punter.
You did mix metaphors already. And actually, so Josh would have called you out on it, for sure. Being a catcher to now a receiver. So, all right. Here we go. Second segment. If you think that you may be the beneficiary of an inheritance over, could be soon, could be a decade from now, what should you be doing in your financial life right now to strategize, to plan ahead? We're helping with that right now. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name is Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn, special guest Amy Masters. Every episode of the Wise Money Show, as well as a lot of other content, is on the YouTube channel. Go check it out. Go to YouTube, search the Wise Money Show. Subscribe so you can follow us there. Turn on notifications so you're made aware every time we drop new content. Lots of videos, lots of content, well over 1,000 videos there on the Wise Money YouTube channel. So go check that out. Okay, talking about the great wealth transfer. Depending on the article you look at or which ChatGPT version you're looking at, somewhere between $30 trillion and $84 trillion. That's a lot. That is a lot. It doesn't matter. Okay, yeah, that's a big gap. I know it's tens of trillions of dollars will be passed from one generation to the next over the next 2 decades. So if you believe that, and I know you're probably thinking, oh gosh, yeah, that would be fantastic. No, it's going to come with a lot of emotion and going to come with a lot of impact and change to your financial life. So what are some of the planning strategies that you could be incorporating right now if you believe, if you think, if you know, hopefully you've had conversation where you could be receiving an inheritance?
Yes. So in this show, for the most part, for right now, we're talking to the receiver. You could potentially be getting some money, and I would do everything I could. Just if I'm laying the foundation, I would do everything I could to understand what's going on in the family's finance and financial life. I might be trying to build some skills, because it really takes skill and character. So what might I be doing? I might be establishing the fact that I am financially responsible, because with the passers that are going to be sending this money to possibly me and or my siblings, they're going to be looking and they're going to say, hey, who are we going to list as contingent workers in the jobs in our estate plan? So who's going to be the power of attorney, the contingent power of attorney? Who's going to be the executor after the secondary executor being named? Who's going to be even with the medical powers of attorney? So I want to be establishing myself as a very responsible person, and I think there are some things that we can do to do that.
Absolutely. And speaking of estate planning, we're kind of going out of order of the 6 areas, but estate planning, there's a story I always think about that I often share with clients. I'm a big storyteller in my meetings, but estate planning, sometimes when I'm talking to the generation that might be receiving those dollars, it's, well, I don't have those dollars yet. Why do I need to have an estate plan in place? And, a couple stories come to mind, but one of which is, making sure we have the right structure in place, whether the dollars are actually in your possession or not, because sometimes those things can happen quickly. I know our firm is working with a family right now where someone received an inheritance and then that person actually passed away quite quickly after they received the inheritance and didn't have things necessarily in the way that they would have wanted to. And so making sure you're already ready to receive those dollars by having that right structure in place, because sometimes money also can poof out of thin air, whether it's an inheritance that maybe happened quickly or there was a lawsuit or, insurance proceeds, life insurance. And so just knowing, hey, I don't have these dollars in my possession yet, I don't need an estate plan, that's not necessarily true. We want to make sure we have that right structure in place. So if there are dollars that are unexpected, you're still protecting the people you want to protect as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And an estate plan is sort of geek speak. Oftentimes people think, oh, I need a will. No, a basic estate plan is 4 documents. A will instructs, well, who's going to administer things if I pass away, who will be guardian of children, of any minor children, and then you list out bequests. So who would get what resources? So that's your will. But then you've got a living will, which is the exact opposite of living and the exact opposite of a will. It's a declaration of what you would want to instruct those to do if you're in a terminal health situation. And yeah, I do want food and water. No, I don't. Those sorts of things. It's not a DNR, but it operates it instructs in a terminal health situation. So that's the second living will. A healthcare power of attorney or healthcare power of appointment has a few different names, kind of like streets in Indiana. And so who do you list as those folks with authority to make healthcare decisions if you're unable to do so? And then finally, a durable power of attorney or financial power of attorney, who would you list to have authority to make financial decisions if you're unable to? So those are the 4 documents. That's the basic estate plan. You can add a revocable living trust or a trust to that. But that's not even what we mean by an estate plan. It's all of that, but then also looking at all of your finances in your entire financial life to make sure you've got the ownership correct on all of your assets and that you got the right beneficiaries listed on all of your assets as well. So do you need to do that every month? No. Do you need to do it every year? No. But every couple of years, you need to tune in and say, all right, is everything still structured the way that it should be? Are there any updates in my personal life that need to influence how I own things or who I list in wills and blah, blah, blah? So that's the estate plan. I completely agree. If you think, hey, I might be receiving an inheritance, get your own foundation in place first with your own estate plan.
Absolutely. Just the simple act of doing that does demonstrate, hey, I am responsible. Because again, as we're building the skill and character, what what actions can I take? So if we go back, if we're looking at the 6 areas of financial planning, the in present financial position, I think one of the things that you can do is, in my humble opinion, what I've seen is very effective, is to make sure there's a complete cutting of the purse strings between you and your folks. And don't be looking to your folks as the backstop for any potential financial need situations and other things, because they're going to know. Likely, if your folks have extra money that will someday get passed to you, they're excited about that. But if you constantly don't quite have your act together and you're always in need, it might kind of steal some of that joy.
Mm-hmm. I would also say, we talk about the 3 bank account system. There's a difference. This is why we started with the difference between expecting, preparing, and planning. We're talking about planning right now, but if your mindset as a potential receiver of an inheritance is expecting, then rack up the debt. And who would need an emergency fund? Those are lazy dollars. No. No, have a solid foundation to your present financial position. Live within your means. So maybe you have a budget, right? And know, here's how much money's coming in. Here's how much money's going out and where, and we've got the right margin in place. Have the right delayed spending where you're saving up for known upcoming expenses. Have the right emergency fund in place, and don't take on too much debt. Yes, receiving an inheritance could actually throw a lot of resources to help you have a stable foundation. What we've seen, if your habits are such that you live financially on the edge, when all of a sudden you get more resources, guess what? You're just going to take that up a notch. It's not all of a sudden going to allow you to pay off the debt and you'll never have debt again. I'll build up that emergency fund and I'll be steady and have a good foundation from then on. The habits will continue.
That's right. It's just let it accelerate your goals, not kind of fix any issues, because it's kind of just putting a Band-Aid on maybe underlying issues that needed to be sorted out and putting, again, that foundation in place.
I'm going to jump to tax planning. We can come back to protection planning. So what do you think is, in someone's life, what's their biggest expense category?
Housing?
Taxes.
Medical?
Taxes. Think about it.
Kids sports.
Kids sports. That's it. Yep. Ding, ding, ding. Taxes, if it's not number one, it's right up there. Mm-hmm. It's the biggest thing that you're going to pay in your life. And when there's wealth being transferred, you want to make sure as little of it goes to Uncle Sam as possible. So from a tax planning standpoint, obviously we'll talk about, well, if you believe you're going to be delivering or giving an inheritance to someone else, what should you be doing? But from a tax planning standpoint, I guess I would start there. If you think you might be receiving an inheritance, you need to be doing tax planning on your own. You need to be working with a certified financial planner, doing tax planning, looking at your own financial situation, sort of void of, well, what might an inheritance do to my financial life, and make sure that you're looking at the strategies for you to pay the least amount of tax over your lifetime and implementing those. But when it comes to receiving an inheritance, we'll talk about some other strategies. So we've got that and more coming up on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. I haven't seen the numbers, but I bet it is taxes.
Yeah. Do you think so, Amy?
I think so.
Categorically? I mean, if you lump property taxes and income taxes together, no, to me, no question.
Oh, that's where I was lumping property taxes in my housing expense. So that's where.
Got it.
Okay, so because I think, insurance is, protection planning is an interesting area.
Yeah.
And I have a little story I'm happy to share.
Good. Let's get into it. We'll start with tax planning.
And Amy,
I did it there.
and Amy, you know these clients too. So.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Third segment. What are some of the tax planning strategies you could implement right now if you think there's a chance you might be receiving an inheritance in the future? We're helping with that right now. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name is Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn, special guest CFP Amy Masters. Every episode of the Wise Money Show is on podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. Search the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Subscribe to it there, and then rate the program there. We appreciate it. That's helpful feedback for us. Also helps folks that are looking for wise financial content. Helps them find us. So we appreciate that. Check us out wherever you listen to podcasts. All right. Talking about the great wealth transfer and specifically things that you can do, strategies that you can implement as you're planning for either giving an inheritance or receiving. We're talking about that one right now. From a tax planning standpoint, if there's a chance that you're receiving an inheritance, to me, I would make great emphasis on what your tax shelter strategy is right now. And that phrase, I actually can't stand it, Kevin, but you came up with it. And it does encapsulate, like, should you be contributing pre-tax? Should you be contributing Roth? Is your HSA for saving up for into a tax shelter, or is it just a health spending account, actually? And so looking at your tax shelter strategy and trying to position as much of your savings into those tax shelters as possible, because if you receive an inheritance, it's very possible you'll get a bunch of money that is not protected from Uncle Sam. Mm-hmm. And you're all of a sudden going to be subject to taxes on dividends and capital gains and some other things that might gunk up your tax picture. And then also you might be inheriting some tax shelters themselves that you then have to unwind that can create a lot of tax consequences as well. So having as much of your financial life tucked away in tax shelters as possible, that's what I'd recommend.
I think this is a great opportunity for some of those conversations between generations too. I think the more open you can be, that's where we can take a step back and start doing like multi-generational planning. Sometimes that means the receiving generation should be implementing certain tax strategies, or it might be having conversations with parents of, hey, here's maybe some strategies you should be taking advantage of because maybe it makes more sense for them to pay taxes in a lower tax bracket where you're maybe in the height of your working career, and it might be harder to implement some of those Roth conversion type strategies now while you're still working.
Yeah, you want to look across the empire and say who's going to be paying taxes on what dollars, and should I transfer, again, we're talking to the receivers, but the passers need to be looking at their tax situation, the receiver's tax situation, and should I transfer assets in my lifetime? Or should I let them receive a step up in basis at my death? Mm-hmm. And because there's a 0% capital gains tax rate for the person that has the right amount of ordinary income.
Yeah.
And so this is where we want to figure out, okay, are there assets that are there highly appreciated assets that either could be put into a donor advised fund so no one pays taxes on them, or it could be passed to a different generation who would not pay tax on the capital gain.
So I don't get the nickname Michael P. Roth Bernard for nothing. I've completely earned that and will continue to do so because of the tax shelters, you got to be working with your CFP, see which one makes the most sense for you. But my goodness, Advantage Roth, in my opinion, if you think you're going to be receiving some dollars, receiving an inheritance, I'd want to have as much money as possible completely, sheltered from Uncle Sam forever, unless they change the laws. And so anyway, exploring those tax shelters and yeah, really looking at the Roth to see, for your funding or maybe Roth conversions. We jumped over the second area of someone's financial life, protection planning. Kevin, if you think you might be receiving an inheritance from a protection planning standpoint, what do you need to be on the lookout for?
Well, I was working with some clients, and one of the spouses had family wealth that it wasn't, hey, there's a chance that we might not get anything. That there was a certainty that they were going to get something, and there had been certain chunks that had come, and then there were annual gifts, and they were trying to figure out, well, how do we do this? And so one of the spouses, as soon as the gifts started coming in, said, hey, I'm gonna be done working. And so what should we do? And I said, well, here's the risk. If you're done working, your financial plan just went off track in the event that it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Because the spouse that was done working wasn't their family. So they were looking at this and saying, hey, the whole thing works if we get the inheritance from my spouse's family, but if my spouse is gone, that money is going to my children, not to me, and my financial plan wouldn't work. So this is where when you look at, well, what are the needs for life insurance? What are the various needs? And in this case, it was for the spouse that was in line to inherit the money. If they were gone, the financial plan kind of fell apart because they kind of moved into expecting mode instead of planning and preparing mode. And so one of the things that we did to plan for was to get a meaningful life insurance policy on the spouse. And it was a term insurance policy. And after the last of the previous generation died and the money got passed, then we could change the life insurance. They didn't have to pay for it.
I guess good time to just bring up that, while Kevin's speaking so unemotionally about this, and you could sound like, oh, the emphasis is on the money. No, it's not. No, it's not. And that's why you need to be working with a certified financial planner. Our job, Amy's job, Kevin's job is to be unemotional, while caring greatly for you and for your well-being and the well-being of the family. Be unemotional to be able to see blind spots and, consider this and what if this happens. Not to ensure that you have some financial windfall if someone passes away. Absolutely not. But be able to strategize to say, well, financially, what would happen, and is there some structure we should put in place? So,
looking at retirement planning, we've already mentioned, not building a plan based off of an inheritance happening, right? We don't want the plan to be dependent on, well, if that happens, we're good. If it doesn't happen, But an alternative or a situation that I've been working with a client on is actually the fact that their balance sheet would increase in assets with the expected inheritance that they've had conversations with mom and dad on because of a family vacation home. But that family vacation home is something that they want to keep in the family. Like that to them is then the next generation. And so actually when we were building the retirement projection, we built out a plan assuming that doesn't happen, but built in additional expenses that we think that they'll have in retirement because now they have their house as well as this vacation house that they're maintaining. So 2 sets of property taxes, 2 sets of insurance. And so we're actually thinking our retirement expenses are larger than what we might have otherwise thought of because of this property that's important and something we want to keep in the family.
Yeah, and yesterday in case class, that's one of the things that we do at Korhorn Financial Group. On Wednesday mornings, we get a group of CFPs and insurance and CPAs and all these folks together to work on cases. And we're looking at a case with significant property, and the goal was to pass that down, and that was like the highest import. But the issue was the passer was struggling to pay the current costs of the property upkeep, maintenance, and other things. And we didn't know anything about the receiver, but we were looking at this saying, well, if it's a struggle for the passer, it's likely the receiver is going to struggle with this as well. If the receiver has any financial stress right now, this gift of the inheritance of this property might be the straw that breaks the camel's back. And so there's this slow dawning of the realization that this property might not make it down the family line. Yeah. And the receiver might need to sell it, and instead of having a big expensive property that just sucks money to maintain, it might be converted to cash.
If you are a potential receiver of an inheritance, which based on these numbers in the Great Wealth Transfer, a considerable number of us, you need financial planning. You need comprehensive financial planning, looking at all 6 areas of your financial life, looking for strategies, looking for synergy, looking to ensure that you're making great choices. And when you're doing that planning, for most of you, that you shouldn't be expecting an inheritance. It should be cream on the top and not baked into the base assumptions of your plan, but doing the right things, finding the right strategies, making wise financial decisions. You need comprehensive financial planning. All right, more coming up on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group.
So are we
redemption?
So yes, I'm a believer in redemption stories.
Hey.
So the question is,
segment.
We're going to the 4th segment. So I think you have to start. Are we now going to talk to the passers?
Yeah.
Because I would start with saying, hey, if you're a passer, Mike just said the receiver needs financial planning. One of the greatest gifts that the pastors can bestow upon the receiver is the gift of financial planning.
Yep. You said it well the first time. Say that
Okay.
again right when we open up here.
Well, we'll just have Lindsay cut that and splice
There
it.
you go. All right, here we go. Fourth segment. Thanks for being here. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. My name is Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn, special guest Amy Master. Stay up to date on all Wise Money content. Find us online, wisemoneyshow.com, and then all over social media. Wherever you're at, we are there as well. Search the Wise Money Show. We're talking about the great wealth transfer, and it's going to happen over the next 2 decades, so this is the only show we'll do about it. Just kidding. We'll probably talk about it a decent amount because trillions, tens of trillions of dollars will be transitioning from baby boomers to, Gen Xers, millennials as well. And in this time, making sure that you're prepared and you're planning so that, these dollars can be a blessing as opposed to a curse, can bless you and your financial trajectory, not enrich Uncle Sam if they don't need to be. So the planning is extremely, extremely important. There's 2 sides to this coin, right? When there's money transferring, are you the potential receiver or are you the potential, giver or passer? And we've been focusing on, well, if you're receiving, what are the things that you should be doing? And we ended with the most important one, and that is that overall concept of getting prepared is looking at your financial life, all 6 areas together, with an expert, with a guide, with a Sherpa who cares about you and wants the best things for you, but has run the miles before. They've helped hundreds, if not thousands of people receive inheritances, and so they know what to look out for and what to optimize, right? You need a certified financial planner that's doing comprehensive financial planning. Now, if you are potentially a passer, we'd start there as well.
Yeah, and because we ended the last segment talking about a receiver, and if you are going to be receiving an inheritance, you need financial planning, and it can be a little challenging if the generation above you isn't clear in how it works. I've seen lots of situations where the children, the adult children, get an envelope and there's this amount of money in this account. I never knew. So how do you open the lines of communications? But in order to get the receivers going on a trajectory to have financial planning and to be preparers and planners, not just expectors, what we believe is the best gift you can give the receivers is the gift of financial planning. And so if the generation that's doing the passing says, hey, we would like to basically sponsor you to work with a financial planner. Now, the great thing is if you work with a firm like Korhorn Financial Group, and there are lots of great firms out there, we're not the only ones, but if you work with a firm like Korhorn Financial Group, we've got 20 client-facing CFPs. So mom and dad can work with one advisor and the children can work with another one because there is technically a conflict. And a lot of times, mom and dad say, hey, I want you to work with my children because you know all the history, all the backstory, all the relational dynamics, all this other stuff. And we can do that, but just know there is a conflict potentially between what is best for mom and dad versus what is best for the kids. And one of those conflicts is, okay, if mom and dad are going to and this is a situation we were just looking at. Mom and dad are going to die at 95 with $8 million. Now, it's less money today, but that's still a lot of money. Do you want the children, when mom and dad die at 95 with $8 million, if there's 2 children and they each got 4, do they each want $4 million when they're 68 and 66? Because if they each needed $4 million when they're 68 and 66, there's a huge problem. So the question is, when do you do it and how do you do it in a way that is healthy relationally and the kids don't seem grabby and the parents don't feel taken advantage of, and that parents don't want to enable or create some sort of codependent situation. So
I'd lump all that into a gifting strategy, and it's bigger than just the money. There's the relational stuff and the enabling stuff, all that sort of stuff. But you've got to consider it all within a gifting strategy. One of the most common questions we get is how much money can I give someone else without it being taxable? That's actually a very complicated answer, but the answer you're looking for this year's 18 grand. You can give anyone on the planet 18 grand and the IRS doesn't really care. You don't even need to tell them. And there's gift splitting as well. So if you're married, you can each give 18. If the person you're giving it to, if they're married, you can each give 18 to each of them. And so the numbers add up. But have a gifting strategy, and I would watch out for something. Oftentimes, I'll phrase it in the positive. Have a gifting strategy, but also have a step up and cost basis strategy.
yeah,
If that makes any sense. Oftentimes, as you get older and you start looking at your assets and saying, you know what, we're going to give the house to the kids. We're just going to put it in their name because I don't want anyone else to take it. Or we've got these investments that we've realized we're not going to use these in our life. We're going to give them to the kids. Well, if that asset, whether that's a house or those investments, you paid very little for compared to what it's worth today, when you give it to them during your lifetime, you're giving them that cost basis and that future tax obligation.
That's right. If we're looking at the other 6 areas, present financial position, I've had a lot of new clients that I've onboarded earlier part of this year. And a theme I've noticed is there's a lot of, I would almost say unnecessary complexity where there's multiple institutions. There's multiple bank institutions, multiple, they have 4 Roth IRAs all at different custodians or, different places where those dollars are housed. And so I think that this is a really great opportunity I think it's a win for everyone to simplify life, right? If it's you and your assets, making life simple, whether that's for both of you as you're starting to maybe withdraw dollars for retirement, but also as you're trying to prepare that next generation, making it as solid and easy for them to receive those dollars is something that I feel like I've helped a lot of people with that lately because I've just seen a lot of kind of that unnecessary complexity.
Yeah, and I would, just going back to what you were saying, Mike, about the house, and do I own the house until I die, and then the kids get a step up in basis or not? There is a pro to getting the house out of your name and retaining a life lease, or there's some other strategies there, because you're balancing the step up in basis strategy versus the asset protection strategy.
Yep.
Because the question is, well, what happens if mom or dad were to go into a nursing home, and do we have sufficient funds to just cash flow that and we're not worried about it? Or do we say, no, instead of making one of our major beneficiaries a nursing home or some sort of medical care, we'd like to hedge against that and make sure we've got it covered.
That's where I also, we're talking, the Great Wealth Transfer is going to happen over the next 2 decades. So some of you listening right now are in that group and are thinking, I'm young. I've got a marathon scheduled later this summer. What are you talking about? I wonder what role life insurance could play or should play in your wealth transfer. Whether that is we've got a property that we're going to be leaving to some kids, and that property comes with some high costs that the kids might not be able to shoulder. So we want to give liquid resources at the time, or there's potentially lots of reasons. Now, life insurance at that stage of life has previously been used when it really was unnecessary. But don't let that cloud your judgment on considering it when it is necessary or appropriate.
And it's June of 2024. We don't know at this point what's going to happen with the sunset at the end of next year.
Yep.
And life insurance is an excellent way to leverage dollars and to accomplish certain things. And you can have a pretty amazing internal rate of return on that.
All right, a couple others quickly. Tax planning strategies. You want to hit Roth conversion?
Yeah, this is a huge one. I like the multiple accounts. I've also seen a lot of people where they maybe retired with some money in the bank or some non-qualified money, and they've been living off of that. And in starting this relationship, determined, hey, but you have this huge 401k or IRA. There's a big tax bill that we need to start proactively unwinding for their benefit. But also in talking with them, if they passed away, their children, who, and some of the examples I'm thinking of are in the height of their careers, now have 10 years to take that money out. And so if we can proactively start doing those Roth conversions, again, often that can be a win-win for the client, but also win for the receivers of those dollars.
Other tax planning strategies, giving some highly appreciated investments to charity and reinvesting cash flow back into those. And then certainly we've overlooked it, but gosh, making sure that you've got the proper estate plan if you're a potential passer, and maybe considering revocable living trust to help manage probate and avoid probate. So you need a CFP, working with your CFP, whether you're a passer or a receiver. That's all the time we have for today. On behalf of Kevin Korhorn, Amy Masters, all of us at Korhorn Financial Group, have a great weekend. We'll see you next Saturday for the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group.
Securities offered through Silver Oak Securities, member FINRA/SIPC. Advisory services offered through KFG Wealth Management, LLC. Doing business as Korhorn Financial Group. KFG Wealth Management, LLC and Silver Oak Securities Incorporated companies are unaffiliated.